question was, how does DIY fit into the institutions of higher education? No, that's a good question, and I think it must vary across the board. What we're finding at NASCAD, well, first of all, I'm finding that there is a real interest in the topic of DIY. So I've created a new class that's been on for 3 years now, and I just love teaching it, called Craft and Popular Culture. And we spend a lot of time talking about DIY, Martha Stewart, domesticity, ideas around that. What I'm finding as well is that we have students who come to us, as I'm sure happens here as well, who are arriving because they started as self-taught DIYers and they got really interested and then they got really good at it and then they wanted to specialize. So that's always really interesting to see that they're coming in through that route. But then I love what else I'm seeing. I'm seeing our graduates leave and go into the DIY culture. So there's this interface, this overlap between them, and I think that's where the exciting opportunities show up. The other thing I really have noticed is how many students openly admit, unapologetically, I learned that off YouTube. Oh yeah, I learned that off YouTube. Now I'm on YouTube. And I can't name the number of students with Etsy stores and marketplaces. So, it's all part of that culture, and I think it's bringing some really new ideas into the mix. But the one thing I would argue, and this is a brand new argument, it's untested. It's a hypothesis that I make up right now. But my sense is that as people specialize more and more and realize what their strengths are within the DIY movement, then they do want to seek out more concrete forms of education. So they start doing, if it's not coming to art school or university, it's doing a workshop or doing something where you can gain a little more experience. So I think in that way, I don't see DIY in any way being a threat. What I see it being is an enhancement and opening things up. Right? I think if you're someone who loves what you're making and you're good at it, you're going to figure out the route that you need to take. And I think that people are going to choose different options, but there certainly are some who are choosing university, gallery exhibitions. The one place where your question becomes really interesting is at the Canada Council, because the Canada Council fought really hard to have a fine craft section in the visual arts, and I don't know how DIY fits in there. I think that's a difficult fit.
My name is Stephanie. I can't believe I have a microphone, nobody else did this. But I'm 17 years old, and there is an entire generation of people who are my age who have grown up having blogs, like teeny bopper Tumblr accounts and like weird things where people make crafts and they show them on the internet, or they have maybe Etsy shops, but they never enter this world of actually showing their craft and entering the community. So I'm just wondering what your opinion is on the future of these people. I'm just wondering what your opinion is on that.
Oh, what an interesting question. I mean, I think that points out to me, that's really a good point, because the internet can make you even more anonymous in some ways. Like you're saying, you can do it all online and you don't need to go out there. I mean, nothing's harder really than shopping around for an exhibition, or something, shopping around, or heaven forbid, if you've done a craft fair, what's more painful than smiling behind your booth? Like, it's hard. It's really hard. So you're right, you can do it online. I guess that it goes back to the earlier idea about what the person's motivation would be. If they're happy with that, then maybe that's it, and like you say, I like your description of photo gets lost in Tumblr. But then I'm thinking, you're 17, you're just poised at that perfect age where, let's take you, for example, if you're really passionate about making, maybe you won't be satisfied with that in a year or two, and then you have to ask yourself questions about, okay, where am I going to take this in the next step? And that's where community in this sense also breaks down barriers over what we traditionally have thought of as community. And I'm a child of the 60s and 70s, so there was a huge back-to-line craft community I was raised in, and it was all done face-to-face at the craft fairs and potlucks at communes. But there's like this anonymous internet community now, so that's a whole other community. Etsy, I get confused on Etsy. Sometimes I get really alarmed on Etsy because I can never find the thing I saw last week, and there are just thousands of them. But at the same time, the community is there. So I don't think I answered your question. It's really that individual who wants to make the next step. You're right, there's going to come a moment where you have to do something else.